Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Mindhunter Season 2, Episode 4. Full spoilers for the episode, as always. So this one actually started with a little trick, because we start with a scene of a guy in a car talking to kids, right? Riding along the road, and he's talking to this kid, and he's trying to convince him to get in the car, and he's like, hey, he's scared, get in the car. And the kid's just like, no, I'm just going to the store, it's up here, I don't need a ride, it's just right there. He's like, hey, I'll get a job for you. I'll pay you $2. He's like, for do what? Well, now you're scared. And he basically he talks him how to get the car. And we go to the title screen. The title after the kid gets in the car, and now he's in the car, the door's shut, and he's in the trappings of what might be a killer. We go to the credits. And what's beautiful about this scene is that every episode this season so far, we've started with BTK. And this is obviously not BTK. But the beautiful thing is that there's a natural assumption because of the tone and because of the way it goes to the credits and the fade to black that this is another serial killer. That this is the Atlanta killer or whoever. And we come back after the opening titles, and of course we find out that this is actually an FBI agent who's doing a little test to see how they can lure kids in. And I think we understand the purpose of the test on this scene alone. It wasn't until the next scene with Greg that I got the point of the test itself.
Yeah.
Because we find out that when Greg tries to do this, specifically because it's a black kid, I think it's like 5 black kids that he's got in the car at this point. And Holden's like, well, give them their money and tell them not to get in the car with strangers. That was the end of that. But when Greg tries to approach some kids and say, hey, I've got a job for you, I'll pay you $2 for something, they all just start accusing him of being a cop. And then like one of the mothers like sticks her head out the window. He gets yelled at. Like he sticks out like a sore thumb.
He really does.
They don't, he's not supposed to be there. He sticks out, and everyone's suspicious of him immediately. And this because of this, Holden gets to his theory that the Atlanta killer, whoever it is, must be black because no one's reporting anyone suspicious, no one's noticing anyone. Therefore, it has to be someone that goes by unnoticed in that neighborhood, or in these neighborhoods. So
makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's sound logic. I mean, Holden is jumping the gun in other ways, but I mean, this logic is sound.
No one really argues with the theory here.
No, I mean they're still arguing as well. Not all the cases are linked. Admittedly, they're still not completely buying that.
Yeah,
and that's kind of true throughout pretty much all the episode. I mean, by the end, because he's right about one other thing, it's maybe okay. It's maybe more likely now that they're all linked, but they're still not any definitive. Like these are definitely all linked by the end of the episode.
Yeah.
We actually leave this plot in a very unsatisfying place, and I'm not sure if it comes back or not because I almost think the way it's just kind of pulled away from him is almost more effective if that's just it now.
No, there's no way that's it.
You don't think so?
I'm willing to put money on the fact that this is not it.
Okay. All right. I mean, I'm not going to. I don't feel that strongly about it. I'm just saying I could see it being the case. I could see them doing this and intentionally leaving it being very unfulfilling because it's very unfulfilling for Holden because it's just taken from him.
I get where you're coming from, and I think it'll be. Because obviously a little bit of time seems to have passed between these episodes.
There's been like 4 or 5 more victims, yeah.
Right. I think there'll be a few, maybe, at least a couple more victims before they're like, right, okay, come back in, and that's what's annoying and unfulfilling that they're not stopping him in time, and it's this that's what's causing the problem there.
What is interesting, someone in the comments did point out in the first episode you could see the year at one point. The first episode at least took place in 1980. Well, not we're still in 1980s, debatable, but we are in the 80s now.
Okay, cool. I never caught that.
So that's good to know. You're sticking with this case. Bill and Holden go there because they're going to go and interview this other dude, the assistant to the Candyman. We'll get to that plot itself in a minute, but. They're actually called in because when Holden's presenting this Atlanta case to everyone, they kind of it's like there's not enough here. It's not really our jurisdiction because it's not a federal case yet. We can't just step in. We've not been asked to consult.
But Gunn's like, but I like where you're going. Just keep an eye on it.
Yeah, keep an eye on it. Because even he says no, there's not enough here yet to step in. But just be aware of what's going on with it.
Keep yourself in the loop.
And sure enough, they get a call up to the office where they're told that they're going to Atlanta because now technically one's a kidnapping, which makes it federal, especially since it's across state lines, and because of that, they're going to Atlanta to help. And even though they're going under the guise of helping with the kidnapping, they're really going for the bigger picture and looking at all the cases. Obviously,
it's basically, look, there'll be other people from other departments there. Let them do their thing. You worry about the bigger picture.
And of course, Jim's there. He's happy to see them. And yes, and Holden, when he meets the deputy mayor, he's like, "Hey, like he can't help but keep his mouth shut. And there's that. This is a thing that happened a lot in season 1, where Bill is just standing there over at the side, just holding his shit the entire time, just being like, "Oh god damn it, Holden, why are you opening your mouth?"
How do I explain away his bullshit here?
Yes, it's like we're still working through everything very methodically. All possibilities are open, but this is a likelihood or
But this
whatever.
is our leading theory right now.
Yeah, beholds it now. You've got a predator. This is the same person. And there's even a reaction when he specifically says that he thinks it's a black culprit. There's a little sort of look the mayor kind of shoots around the room at that point.
Yeah.
And, obviously they have this call, the kidnappers make a call back. And it's a really weird kidnapping because it's for $200, which even in 1980 money, I think is like not a lot for a kidnapping.
Low for a kidnapping. And even the FBI and the cops, they're kind of laughing at it. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
sure, we're going to be able to afford that.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of joking and laughing about everything. They're not really taking any of this seriously. To them, it's nothing case, be done by 8
they
o'clock.
come across as a bit of dicks for that. But I think that joke in particular landed because, again, even for them, it's like, this is trivial.
To be fair, I think it's actually Bill that cracks the main joke.
Was it?
Yeah, because they're off camera. I'm pretty sure it's Bill Voice who, when they say it's for $200, he says, like, so he says, like, he cracks a joke about, oh, let me know if they can't, like, afford or something. Like,
it might be.
I think it's Bill that actually cracks that joke.
That's the joke that lands and comes across as okay.
Yeah.
Just the way they treat it all so trivially, or all obviously, Bill and Holden and Jim less so, but the others there's some kind of nonchalant attitude going around.
Oh yeah, because obviously they even make a comment saying, "Oh, when the mayor gets here, we'll look like we're doing something." Someone on the room will look like they're doing something. Because they've got this like empty building, of like a task force has been put together for this stuff.
Yeah,
but it's clearly a very cheap, like thrown together thing. No one's really putting that much effort into it. And Holden does go to see the main sort of the ringleader of the mothers, the victims' mothers that we met last episode. And they've got their own little setup as well, and they're printing missing posters. They're doing fundraisers. They're doing all kind of things. Because she makes them buy some cornbread on the way out. Take some cornbread on your way out. It's $1.
Yeah,
that was pretty funny. But this is an interesting scene for me, just in the sense that she is so confrontational with them, and we know Holden is going to try and do whatever he can. We know he cares, right? Sometimes I think he cares a bit more because of his own ego of solving the case than it is about helping the people. But at the same time, I still believe he wants to, and I still believe that he's going to try and do what he can.
Yeah, definitely.
But her frustrations are also extremely, extremely validated, and everything around him. Obviously, it's not Holden's fault specifically, but the system is really screwing them all over. And there's this thing where he's trying to just convince her that he really does care and he wants to help. But of course, by the end of the episode, and this is part of the frustration, is that he's pulled away because he says, "I'm not going." Because one of the final things he says is he's walking out the building is, "I'm not going anywhere. I'm here to help." And at the end of the episode, he's told to leave. He's told to just get out of the city because their help's not wanted. And it stings. It stings because obviously the kidnapper never calls, which maybe leads credence to this is just a fake thing anyway. Because the kidnapper sounded white, is the thing we've heard. And that doesn't fit with what Holden thinks the killer is. And when he's talking to Jim, he says it shouldn't matter, whether white or black, and he's like, well, it does. And because of who's voting for this deputy mayor in these elections, this will hurt. And then on top of that, having a predator hurts everything we talked about last episode with the incoming business and tourists and all that
I
stuff.
think the line with Holden's like, oh, it shouldn't matter whether black or white, and Jim just like, well, it does, because even last season to him it mattered to him getting the job or not, as the case may be.
Yeah, this is Holden kind of his ignorance, just sort of being there a little bit, and not consider, because of course it matters publicly from a perception standpoint. It matters. Sure, in a vacuum, if people are just killing other people, should it matter? It shouldn't, but it does, because we live in the world we're in.
And it's one of those where Holden's in his defense is looking at the larger picture, where the vast majority of the ones he's worked on have been white.
Yeah, and it's
so
also
he's going, in his head, in the numbers, this is a small minority, so you shouldn't worry about it. But to them locally, obviously, it's huge.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. And Holden, of course, is concerned with nothing but solving the crime, and everyone else around him is like, no, there's all these other factors to consider. And obviously, this is the one thing we do sympathize with Holden for, because, like, yeah, of course, like, yes, you should stop caring about all this shit and just care about saving kids who are being killed and mutilated and whatever else. But that's just not the way the system works. And it's not even the system. I mean, like, the system's at fault for all of this. This is less to do with the system and more to do with the gaining the system, I suppose, in
Mm.
a weird way. Um, but yeah, so yeah, it has this very kind of unsatisfying kind of ending to it, where you get the feeling that Holden's getting ready to go wild. Like, yeah, okay, right, they're admitting that this is probably a predator now, and he's getting ready to go, and it's like, yeah, unleash the Holden, unleash him, unleash the beast. And it's like, nah, go home. And there's not even like a proper reason. The deputy mayor's just like, no, it's not your jurisdiction anymore. You're no longer required, and we don't want you, so go away. Is basically
Yeah.
what he says.
And he's like, "Hey, he can't do that. Can he do that? Yep. Yes, he can."
Yeah, so it's really unfulfilling. So, of course, Belle isn't there for these scenes. Belle gets called back home
In what
halfway through.
suddenly became the most interesting thing of the season.
Oh, that's a very definitive statement from you.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you'd like this actually. I thought you might go the other way on this.
No, I think it's just interesting enough.
Because there was teases last season that Bill couldn't like connect with his kid, and he was worried that his kid had the blank stare of a serial killer, things like that. That was kind of like there sprinkled throughout season one, and he's been getting on with them better this season. They seem to be getting along from the glimpses we've
We
seen.
haven't really seen him that much, but yeah.
Yeah, and it actually kind of ties into what we hear about with the Wendy plot, because Wendy has a lot more to do this episode. We'll get into obviously her and Greg's little adventure in a bit, but.
Bloody Greg.
He doesn't know what's happening. Like we find out that the police want to talk to their son, and of course, immediately I think of season one and go, "Oh shit! Like, is he actually involved in it?" I mean, he's quite a small kid as well. It's not like he's, thank you. But then it neatly kind of ties in to what we're doing with the Candyman stuff, where it's like, well, no, he wasn't necessarily the culprit specifically in doing the crime, but he was, he assisted the killers. He assisted the people behind it, and we find out that the key that went missing, like he had it. He had the key for the empty house, and he took. And they'd already found this out from the older kids that were the main culprits, the killers, and the impression I got is because the wife says she's crying her eyes out because Holden gets home and the cop's sitting there like, I'm sorry, Bill, you have to talk to your wife. Go and talk to her. She's out back, and the key detail here that really stuck out to me is that she says that it was their son's idea to put him on the cross like that. And all I could think when she said that was him seeing some of his crime scene photos from last season. And
Absolutely.
basically this was him saying, make it look like a serial killer. Like, because I think she says at one point it was an accident, it didn't intend to kill someone. And he, to try and make it look like something else, like, oh, make it look like a serial killer. And, they'll go off looking for all these different types of people.
Yeah, it's definitely he's. I don't know if it's as thought out as that,
Sure.
or more as just okay. No, he's seen all these things, and it's kind of left an impression.
Yeah, and honestly, this is why this works for me. It's the idea it's inspired from the crime scene photos that he's seen from. Because I think it would be too coincidental for me to just be like, oh, his son happens to be like doing this.
Oh, sure, yeah, no, but the fact that we saw there was a big thing last season, Bill bringing his work home and trying to lock it in the one room that no one else ever saw, but obviously it didn't end up that way.
Then it raises this character thing of like, is he only went down this path because Bill's been bringing his work home? Has him bringing his work home created this in his son? And that's something he's probably going to have to fight with himself.
Yeah.
Or is it no? He was already like that. There was nothing they could have done. But seeing the photos of the crime scenes is what's inspired this specific display.
I would suspect a little of column A, a little of column B.
Okay.
Because Bill was already a little worried about him, right? He had the stare, like you say, things like that.
And you could argue that Bill was worried because he knows what to look for, and he could sense something was wrong.
Yeah, but of course there was also the sense of, is it just paranoia? Is he getting? We talk about when the back door was open.
And that's probably the son.
Just on his mind. Yeah, probably just the son.
It's probably the son now. Now the son's been sneaking around doing hell knows what. It's probably the son who left the door open.
Exactly. But, which isn't something, obviously with the specific circumstances here, what he's been doing, but, your kid left the back door open. Not something to be as paranoid about as Bill was at the time.
Until it turns out his kid was out the back door because he was away to help with a murder.
Well, yes, but that's not what Bill was thinking. He was thinking someone else has been in. He was much more worried because of his job, because of what it was on his mind. So I think it's the same thing where he probably imprinted a little of that onto his son, where he's looking extra hard at things that maybe were there, maybe weren't, just because of it's on his mind all the time. But then,
It's not much of a maybe anymore, though, is it?
yeah, no, exactly, it's not.
So, no, I'm very curious to see the fallout of this and how this affects Bill and his. The next time I interview someone and Bill's there, like, how does he? And I happen to know the next one's the Manson episode, so like. How does this play? Because we come out of this season and all the episodes so far it's been like, okay, Holden may have a panic attack. Holden may have a panic attack. Now Bill is going through this. Like, either one of them could like blow up in an interview now.
Yeah. Interestingly, I know I said at the start of the season that the Manson interview is where Holden snaps. I think it might be too early in the season for that.
Oh, maybe. That's assuming they see him only once. I mean, because Kemper was a couple of times.
That's true. Because obviously the next episode is the midpoint, right? So
it's a big episode as well. It's like this is one of the two 70-minute episodes. Next one.
Right. Okay. Expecting good stuff then.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
But I'm fascinated by the fallout here for Bill and what this does for his character. Because I think
go on.
Well, I was gonna say, I think because the idea that Holden got his panic attack because he got too close to his work and his work kind of became part of his life in an unhealthy way. I think it's nice that Bill kind of mirrors that in a different way, where he took his work home and it's infected his family life in a way that's different to how Holden's been affected. But the idea that doing this type of work, dealing with these types of people, is affecting them both, that it is having an effect on them.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's just interesting to me that I think season 1 was probably Holden's season, right? In terms of
Sure.
The personal stuff. It felt much more like we followed him more than any others, or his stuff was a little bit more personal, hit a little bit harder. This season feels like Bill's.
Yeah, I could see that. Although even Wendy is getting more to do. She has her own romantic subplot, which was obviously fed before this, and then this episode kind of blows it up a little bit. When they're called up to the office, sans Greg, might I add. So Greg already feels left out, like he's the fourth wheel, which isn't a saying because usually 4 wheels is normal. But you know what I mean? Like he feels
a fairly stable thing.
Yeah, but he feels like he's the separate one of the group. But when Wendy goes up, Gunn doesn't really have anything to say to her. He just he throws in a little compliment at the end about how important the science is, and then just leaves it at that. And when they're in the elevator, and Bill and Holder are just talking the case, she's like, "Why was I even in that meeting? Like, he just wanted me to feel better." Like, so in a minute, when they're going to cancel this trip to see the Candyman's sort of assistant, Greg just says, "Why don't we go? We've done all the research and we can ask the questions." I think the reason why this is tempting enough for Wendy to say yes is that both of them have just been made to feel like they're lesser in the group. And I think Greg more so, but Wendy also feels that. And it's like, oh, no, this is a chance to prove ourselves. And of course, I immediately went, oh, shit, what's Greg going to do?
Yeah.
And it's funny because I've had that feeling since the start of the show about Holden, because Holden's always worried me a little bit, like, what's Holden going to do? It's going to...
No, but there's a difference. With Holden, it's like, he might go too far at some point.
Sure.
What line is he going to cross? Greg is just incompetence.
Well, I was saying actually about how either Bill or Holden might blow up. The risk with Greg is that he might just shit his pants. Like that's the risk.
It is. Yeah.
Having actually seen the interview, that is the risk. Yeah. So no, very 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 good. So we had them go, and it was an interesting little beat actually in the interview where they're debating the sexuality of the crimes, because the crimes we find out about, and I'd actually heard the name Candyman, not just from the movies, the Candyman, which has nothing to do with this killer, obviously, but I'd heard the name in relation to this case, the idea that someone was tempting teenagers with drugs. Also, it was kind of funny that Holden didn't get that. He assumed it was literal candy. He's like, he's handing out Skittles, and they're just getting in the car for Skittles.
Yeah. We actually brushed over a really important beat in that scene where they're all around the table.
Oh, that's what I'm getting to. The sexuality, yeah, that's what I'm getting to. I was rewinding a little bit to just explain the case we're talking about for the context, because they're talking about how this person who, let me remind myself of the name. It was like William something, right? Junior, Elmer Wayne Henley Jr. So it was Wayne, not William. We'll go with Wayne. Just because it's easier.
Junior is what he requested, I believe.
He helped a serial killer and rapist. He'll get called whatever I feel like calling him.
Just saying. It's why he was called for most of the interview.
Wayne was actually not because the killer himself was killed. In fact, Wayne killed the killer. He killed the Candyman at the end of this. But he was a potential victim to begin with, and then became kind of like an ally. He was like the recruiter. He actually lured the younger people that at the time his age into the traps, and then
Yeah.
often
$200 a pop.
yeah, often witnessed and saw the crimes being committed, which was days of rape and then murder, while they were chained to a what did you call it, like a person board or something like that. It was
Yeah.
it was something really just like a really like normal sounding thing, but also isn't a normal thing. It was like a person board, and so yeah, talk about the sexuality and because this was all homosexual crimes, and Greg starts dropping these things about homosexuality being deviance, and it was like really like, obviously we know Wendy's gay, so I'm sitting here going like, wait, hold on a minute, like calm down, Greg, like, and she kind of says no, it's been not categorized that anymore. She kind of like recontextualizes it, and it's just this weird scientific designation.
But he's still like not having it.
Yeah, he clearly has a bias here, and
which I mean, in the time period, isn't surprising that one of the characters in the group is like that.
No, it's not surprising. I think it also lends credence to Wendy. Every time she says, she keeps that out of her work life. So she doesn't bring it up. She doesn't talk to her colleagues about being gay. She keeps that to herself. And as she puts it, compartmentalizes her life, that part of her life. And yeah, so before they go on the trip, she goes on a date with the bartender, and they go bowling, which she's terrible at, and she refuses to wear the shoes because other people have been wearing them. I do it, but I can sympathize with the notion. I get it.
You know what I found really weird in the last like couple of like whenever I was growing up, it was like you have to wear the shoes, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was like you go in and they like right, okay, they make you take the shoes and and the last like 2 years, all of a sudden they just don't give a shit. It's just wear your own shoes. We don't care.
I don't know.
It was a weird switch because like I went for the first time after not having gone for a couple of years, and it just was never brought up. And I was like, is that not a thing anymore?
I always assumed it was more about protecting their floor than it was.
No, I did
else.
as well, which is why I assumed they made you wear the appropriate footwear. But I don't know. Now it just doesn't seem to happen anymore.
Do you think they've got some like great varnish or something they can just like wax over it, and it's the floor's back to tip top shape, and they can do that every couple of weeks, and it doesn't matter if you're scuffing it with your crappy shoes.
Could be.
I don't know. I've not been in bowling in like 10 years. I have no idea what's going on with the bowling.
But it really threw me when I just went. I was like, wait, do I not need to change my shoes? I can just wear my own. This is way better.
So they get to know each other. We find out that the bartender was married, left that marriage. She'd done a lot of things because she was supposed to, gotten married, had kids for her parents' sake, blah, blah, blah. And now she's being kind of free and she's being honest. She doesn't want to hide who she is anymore. And obviously Wendy's like, no, I mean, I was with someone and, I got out of that after a long time. But, they're very different people. Wendy shows up to this date kind of in a proper, like, business skirt kind of thing. And she's in, like, t-shirt and jeans. And but because at one point you think that she said enough to like sort of like drive her away, but it's like no, she's because a little joke where she's like, this won't work, and you're like, wait, that got serious, but the bowling ball won't work. You need the lighter one because you're shit at it.
Yeah.
So use the light one. And it's a fine. I've just noticed there's a little mute symbol on your screen when you press the mute button when you're going to cough or whatever. I just noticed that.
It was a sneeze, but have you never seen it before?
I've never noticed it. I'm never looking at that over there. I'm looking at on the recording software.
Okay. Fair enough.
So no, I mean they have chemistry, and it's kind of giving Wendy some confidence more than anything else. This idea of this woman who's like has more freedom because when she says that she wants to be honest about herself and not hide who she is. Wendy's like, but is that really the most important thing? Because to Wendy, clearly, at least in her mind, she's been doing the right thing by keeping it a secret because she doesn't want it to hinder her job, hinder anything she does, and her career is important to her. Whereas the bartender's like, work's not the most important thing to me. Like I just want to be happy, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I think she's going to be an influence on her and how and it already has been in fact, because when they get to the interview, because we see them kind of nervous. Greg is nervous at least. They're going over the files and what to say, what to do. They crack a little joke about how they'll finally get their questions answered because Bill and Holden always go off script. Well, Holden always goes off script. Bill just sort of lets him do his thing.
Bill's the muscle.
But yeah, so they come to away, and because that's the thing I was thinking is like, who's the muscle in this pair? I mean, it's really Wendy because Greg ain't doing shit.
But most of the serial killers are likely not intimidated by her.
Yeah, very, very clearly, and the dynamic and the conversation plays out a little bit different than normal because of that. Because he keeps staring at, Wayne keeps staring at Wendy, and when she finally kind of pipes in, when Greg is just shitting the bed, like he's he's stuttering. The guy's just telling him to shut up
I
constantly.
laughed so hard because in the car over, he's like, "Okay, well, really, we're gonna go through the questions, but I'm really gonna focus on this section about his family. I think that's where the key lies." First thing starts. So, what's about your family? Oh, we'll talk about that. All right, well, we'll skip this question then.
Yeah. He did not plan for that. There's a really dark joke before they go in, actually, where they're looking at, it was just like a waiver before they're going in, and
when he's like, just sign it, and he's like, no, I'll read everything I sign.
yeah, so he's reading through it, and he's like, oh, in the event of a riot, they won't negotiate for FBI agents, and then it says here that if a woman's caught in a riot, that she will be raped, and then she just deadpan goes, not exclusively. And he just gives her this glance like he's scared. I feel like anything with Greg being a little shitbag is funny.
Yeah, I'll give you that one.
Wendy almost intentionally, like, making him feel like more of a shitbag is just funnier. Because once she starts speaking in the interview, Greg shuts up. Greg doesn't say another word the entire time. He just buckles.
He does, and he knows he's screwed up a little bit.
And he sits there and takes notes. And I do raise the question, what's the point of notes? You're recording the whole thing anyway. I mean, I guess in case the tape recorder dies or something, but...
also, just extra thoughts that you have about... So, it's not necessarily a note on dictation of what he says, but more, a thought related to that. Or, maybe he's thinking he'll be able to talk again later, and it's a follow-up question. He's like, I don't want to forget about asking that.
Sure. Okay, you fair point. So... Interesting interview here. Obviously very different than usual because it wasn't Bill and Holden that were doing it. So very different dynamic. And Wendy, most notably, once she gets them talking, and of course he's like, I never participated in anything. I was paid, but he did watch all these things and he knew it was going to happen to them. When maybe the first one, as Bill said earlier, the first time maybe he could be let off the hook a little bit because he didn't know it was going to happen.
But they kind of established that that's not even the case because he was a victim already, so he knew what was going to happen.
To a point, I don't know if you got the impression that he was like, because he says that he asked him all these sexual questions and about handcuffs and all that, but Wendy essentially gets him to open up by admitting that she was in a gay relationship with someone who was over, and obviously her ex wasn't like a killer, but the idea that she was more powerful kind of belittled her and made her feel like she was one being used.
Greg's face here drops.
It's beautiful, and he has to go and ruin it all in the car ride home. He goes, "How did you come up with that? Oh, that was genius. That was the right thing to say. How did you come up with that? That was a great story." He clearly thinks it was made up. He clearly thinks it was fictional.
Yeah, he can't fathom the idea that she's actually gay.
Yeah, and because that's the big characteristic from this Wayne guy is that he is like so offended at the thought that he might have participated in anything homosexual, to the point where I'm convinced something did happen, because he is so defensive about it to like the absurd degree. He stands up, he yells. Greg's shitting himself because the killer's like up and around and doing it. And he says that he just stayed there and didn't do anything because because he was asked to, because he liked making him happy, because.
Oh, yeah, it was a father figure relationship.
Yeah, it was a father figure. He felt rewarded. He felt like he was patted in the back for doing things that he was asked, and he was trusted to accomplish things. And so and you really get that the way he's so insecure about having to prove that he's straight and that he had a lot of girlfriends and all that kind of thing. Everything about it is just his insecurity of not being worth enough.
Literally leaning into the mic and just shouting about it. It tells you all you need to know.
Yeah, so as far as character study goes, this guy is maybe not as interesting as some of the others we've had, although I think the Candyman killer himself as a case is quite interesting, but he's interesting in a different way to the others because he is an accomplice rather than the actual killer himself.
Yeah.
And we get this different dynamic because it's different people. So I like that we get this completely shaken up style of the interview, before next episode where we get kind of the main guys back to do the Manson one, and like
it's the biggie, isn't it?
Yeah, because I think what's been really neat about the progression of this season so far is the episode 2 we got our first real interview back, and it was just a traditional phenomenal Holden interview, right? last episode, we got, oh, this is where the killers aren't interested in holding, Lucy's interest. So we get a different thing than usual. And in this episode, we get Wendy and Greg going to interview, and the killer is not even the killer. He's related to the killer. So you get a different twist on it. Then next episode, it's like back to the originals for Manson. And I'm sure there'll be some twists and turns in that because it's Manson. But
undoubtedly, but that's the one that the show has been built since like pretty much the start, right? It's Holmes wanted Manson.
Yeah.
For so long.
Yeah. So, that's exciting. Enjoying Greg being a shithead, being a little shitbag, is even more so now that he's made it very abundantly clear that he's homophobic. So there's just another reason to see him as a weasel and enjoy said weasel shaming, I guess.
He's definitely getting replaced by Jim at some point, right?
Oh, yeah. I'll be honest, I think there's going to be a parade. I think there's going to be trumpets as Greg's been shafted out the door.
Yeah. Probably.
I don't think Nana Nana Hey Bye Bye was a thing yet in 1980, but if it was, I guarantee you some of them would be chanting it.
It would have been applied.
Oh dear. Solid episode though. Once again, I think 2 is still the best one of the season so far.
I agree.
I feel like 5's coming in to maybe challenge it, but
that's the thing, because 2 had 2 phenomenal interviews, right? One was the killer traditional interview, and one was the victim.
Here's the thing I'm expecting though from 5. You know how like so much of the runtime tends to be these interviews. I mean, even this one with these different characters was a good probably 10-15 minutes of the whole 50-minute episode. Maybe yeah, I'd probably quite happily say
probably about 10-15.
Yeah, something in that range. I think the reason why the next one's 70 minutes is because the interview is probably going to be like half an hour on its own.
If it is,
I don't think there's more plot. I don't think there's more plot of the other stuff. I think it's just the interview itself is going to be the extra time.
I hope so, because I mean that's the show at its best, and it's the one that everyone's been looking forward to.
How insane would it be if it's literally the whole episode? Like, this show has to do that at some point, right?
It should do that at some point.
Yeah, where the episode starts and it's them just arriving at the prison, and they go in, and the entire hour or whatever it is the interview from start to finish. It's basically, generally most cop shows have the interrogation episode where the entire thing's in the interrogation room. This show needs to do that at some point with one of these visits.
I'm kind of surprised it hasn't already.
It's bound to happen. Manson would be a good case, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe they'll do it later with someone else. But
definitely should happen, though. I agree.
It should happen. There should be like the epic interview where it'll last the whole episode. Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be like a 70-minute one. It can be just a standard 45, 50-minute.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course.
But the whole thing, just the interview, that'll be riveting, I'm sure.
Maybe you save that for when they're interviewing someone who'll actually help them with an active case, where there's more on the line because there's actually stakes to it.
That, or someone they caught personally.
Sure, yeah, I could see that. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to the potential of that. But that is episode 4 of Mindhunter, and we'll be hitting these one a day. Not missed a day yet. Happy about that. So let us know what you think of episode 4 in the comments. Like and subscribe, all the usual things. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. Let us know anything we might have missed if we didn't talk about it, or any little details you want to point out in the episode. Always happy to hear them. So much like what year we were set in, which we were kind of speculating for the last 3 episodes over. You can support, of course, the show and the channel and everything we do here at patreon.com/mailedfuzztv, where you can support us for as little as $1 per month and keep all the content coming, and get some bonuses for your trouble. So go and have a look at that. Check out the other TV reviews we're doing. Remember, we have 2 TV podcast feeds. Well, technically 3 actually, because we have the Netflix audio podcast feed, the Almost Cancelled one, that's this, and then we have the Almost Cancelled TV reviews feed, which is all the non-Netflix shows, and we have the Almost Cancelled TV news podcast, which has its own feed. So do check out all these various TV things we do. Everything's on YouTube, of course, with our a pretty face and whatever Connor's branded, whatever Connor's brandishing over there. So look forward to episode 5, as we are. Thank you very much once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?